Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's Friday, it's 9 o'clock, which means it's time for another video. And today I'm going to be doing a full recap of FISM Italia, FISM 2025. Now, for those of you that are living under a rock and don't know, FISM is the World Championships of Magic. It is the single most prestigious event for magicians, period. People will make their careers by going to FISM and doing an incredible job. People will become famous in this industry by going and competing at FISM and doing an incredible job. Legacies will be made, reputations will be set. Some of the biggest names in Magic have won an award at FISM in some capacity, and people will spend years, because FISM only takes place every 3 years, people will spend years developing and putting together acts designed to showcase their talent in front of thousands of magicians. FISM is a big deal, and it only takes place every 3 years, like I said. And because it's such a big deal, it's treated with a bit of reverence. You have people that are just delegates, that are just coming to the convention, that are some of the biggest names in Magic. Like, you had multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires wandering around touring in Italy. You had big names in Magic, huge names in Magic. They weren't there to lecture, they weren't there to compete, they weren't there to do anything else other than watch the competitions, because the best Magic in the world is showcased at FISM. And FISM is a very different beast. And what I mean by that is you could be an incredible magician. You could go out and do an incredible show and get rave reviews from your clients and your spectators, and you could be the best of the best at what you do, and yet still you could die on your ass at FISM, because presenting a commercial act that works for lay people is not good enough at FISM. I could never in a million years compete at FISM. I've got a great act. My clients love it. I am very, very happy with my act. But if I went and competed at FISM with my act, I would die on my arse. It would be below FISM standards. Because they're looking for something special. They're looking for something unique. They're looking for something that people haven't seen before. You're performing to an audience of 2,000 jaded magicians who, over the course of 5 days, are completely and totally magicked out. They will see more magic in a 5 or a 6 day period than anybody should ever see in their entire life. So you have to stand out, and the way to stand out is to be the best of the best. And I got a chance to go to FISM. This was my second FISM. The first one was FISM 2012 in Blackpool, organised by Derek Lever. The less we say about that, the better. That's the FISM that FISM tries to forget. But this was my second FISM. Very, very excited. I've been to many, many conventions all over the world, and I'm like, wow, going to an actually well-organised FISM, this is going to be a very exciting moment. This is going to be very, very exciting indeed. I was looking forward to it. And look, here's the thing. I said this is going to be a review. It is going to be a review. I'm not going to talk about every single individual act. Really, I'm not going to spend much time talking about the acts at all. There were massive highs at this FISM, but there were also massive lows. And I want to talk about everything all together. But let's talk about the massive highs. And the first thing that I want to say is congratulations to every single competitor, every single lecturer, every single person who performed at that convention. Congratulations, well done. My hat is off to you. Look, there were some competitors that were better than others. That's the nature of a competition. There were some competitors who, by FISM's own judging standards, were below FISM quality levels. There were some that maybe shouldn't have been there. Maybe they should have been there. I don't know. But all I know is I saw some of the best magic that I've ever seen. Now, I was in the dealer hall. So I didn't, but luckily my dealer hall was right next to a TV. So I got a chance to see a lot of acts. And although I wasn't in the actual theatre, and I use the word theatre very loosely, we'll get to that later on, but even though I wasn't in the actual theatre, I did see a lot of the acts, and I did catch some of the shows in the evening. Phenomenal standard, absolutely phenomenal standard. I want to first of all congratulate Mind to Mind, who are now the world champions of mentalism from the UK. I want to congratulate them for 3 different reasons, because for those of you that don't know, Mind to Mind won the mentalism category. Let me explain why that's a big deal. Let me explain the 3 reasons why I'm not going to congratulate Mind to Mind. I'm not going to say they're an amazing act. We know that with the world champions. I'm not going to say, oh, they were better than anyone else. We know that. That would just be stupid. Here's what I am going to say. Mentalism is a very hard thing to watch in FISM, because how the stage competitions work is, it's not like you see all the mentalists, then you see all of the illusionists, then you see all the manipulators. It's a random eclectic mix. So you might see a illusion act, a high-powered illusion act, lots of visuals, followed by a couple of manipulators, then a comedy act, and then your mentalist will come on. And it's very difficult to... And the thing is, you've got all the audience watching, right? So you've got everybody in the audience watching, and you're being judged, and you know you're being judged. The audience are not going to be as invested in a mentalism act as they are an illusion act, because a lot of the time with mentalism, it takes a long time to get to the point. You know, with a manipulation act, in the course of 10 minutes, I can see 1,000 cards being produced. I can see 100 magical moments. But with your typical mentalism act, I'm going to see talking for about 7 or 8 minutes building up to one moment, which is fine. But when you've been watching magic for like 4 days in a death tent, where it's really hot and you're just tired and you're getting magicked out, you have to really stand above everyone else in order to get the audience to react. And they did. For Mind to Mind, they were on their feet. It was, you could feel the energy, right? So the first thing is, to stand out in FISM with a mentalism act is very, very impressive. Second of all, a lot of the time, mentalism doesn't actually even get awarded a first place. Because how FISM works is, you could be above everyone else when it comes to the scoring. You could have more points than everyone else, but that doesn't mean a thing. If you don't get over a certain level, they won't give you first, they'll give you second. And that happened in the illusion category. It happened in the card magic, micro magic, card magic category. It's happened many, many times over FISM. And a lot of the time, mentalists don't get to that #1 spot. And Mind to Mind did. They got to that #1 spot, which doesn't happen very often. And again, that's because their act was incredible. The other thing is, personally, my pet hate is 2-person coding system acts. I've seen some that I like. Morgan and West I've always been a fan of. There's some that do it okay. But the problem with a lot of 2-person coding acts is you can kind of see what's going on, right? You can kind of see what's going on. It's like, right, okay, I'm going to go in the audience. Holding object, I am. Now, hand, this is, tell me, please. And it's kind of like you suddenly lose the ability to form sentences. You're holding a comb. Hand, this is what, now holding I. And a lot of the time with coding acts, it's like, the other thing that you see is you see them getting it wrong. And it's like, well, no, that wasn't that, you know, that wasn't that, or, oh, I can't get it. And you have to be so in sync to be able to do this. And so it's a very easy act to get bad, to make look bad. Mind to Mind are the best in the world at this, without a shadow of a doubt. The stuff they were doing, they weren't coding it. I don't know. I think they might have some sort of psychic connection. I cannot see how a code is possible here. My hat is off to Mind to Mind. My hat is also off to David Penn, who has coached them. If there was ever an advert that if you want to succeed in this industry, you need somebody to coach you, to mentor you, that knows what they're doing, David Penn is that advert for that right now. Congratulations to all involved, World Champions of Magic. That was a massive highlight for me. I'm not going to talk about all the individual acts. Leah Kyle was a standout for me. I thought she's amazing. She's completely redefined quick change at this point. Callista, can't believe she only got 3rd. She was a highlight for me as well. I'll tell you another highlight, and he's had a bit of negative press from a couple of reviews, and I just want to counterbalance that. I want to talk about Harry Merlin Piper, 14 years old. 14 years old, son of Rodney James Piper, probably done more shows than most magicians have got hot dinners. 95% of the audience that were watching would be watching Harry Piper, and they will never have performed at the level that he has performed at. 14 years old, going on a FISM stage, absolutely incredible. A few people have gone on record, and a few reviews have said he's not ready, he shouldn't have been on that show. You know, I completely and totally disagree. Harry, if you're watching this, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, your act was incredible. Just the fact that you are competing at FISM, not just holding your own, but commanding that audience, tells me how big you are in this industry and how big you're going to be. And I'll tell you right now, and I don't think many people appreciated it, one of my favourite moments in the whole of FISM, out of everything that I watched, was you performing suspended animation. Because I've seen that trick done to death. Everybody in the audience has seen that trick done to death. And the way that you did it, with you standing over one side of the stage and the box on the other side of the stage, and the way that you guys actually did that, that was incredible. That was truly innovative. That was one of the most amazing, magical moments that I've ever seen. And you fooled the absolute crap out of me. Like, it was brilliant. That was a personal highlight for my whole convention, for the whole time that I was at FISM. What, A, watching you on stage, and B, watching you perform that illusion the way that you did. Absolutely brilliant. I can only imagine how proud your dad is right now. And I'm telling you right now, to anybody who says to you, 14, too young to be at FISM, fuck them. Because you went on that stage, you did what 99.99% of this industry would never have the balls to do, including myself. And you went out and you went on that stage and you did it, and you went out there in very difficult situations, which we'll get to in a minute. I know how problematic various different factors were for the acts, but you went out there and you did an incredible job, and you smashed it, and you were responsible for one of my favourite moments. So I think you did great. And Rodney, Dad of the Year award goes to you, not just for Harry, but for everything that you've done for Team GB. Look, suffice to say, the acts were amazing. I don't have anything to say about the acts. There's some that you might have liked more than others. There's some that you might not have liked. I personally liked Eric Chen's act. I know a lot of people said it was a step backwards from his act 3 years ago. I actually liked it. I thought that the concept of the Skittles and the Rubik's Cubes and everything were great. But when Eric Chen doesn't even place, that tells you everything that you need to know about the quality of the magic in this competition. It was astronomical. That was a massive high. Congratulations to all the acts. Another massive high were there were so many people running around trying to make everything stay organised, and everything was running on time, which I have been told is a difficult thing to do in Italy. I don't know. I've never had experience of that before, but everything ran meticulously to schedule, which was great. You know, I ran over at various different points for various different reasons, but it all started on time that I'm aware of, which is perfect. Unfortunately, I can't think of many more plus points. I will say it was worth me going just to have the experience of FISM and just to see all of those incredible acts. But there were a few negatives, to say the least. And let's talk about this, because here's the thing, right? We're talking about the World Championships of Magic. We're talking about the single most important event, only running every 3 years. And look, I might be wrong on some of this. I've done a little bit of research. I haven't been as in-depth as I have with other videos that I've put up recently. So I might be incorrect slightly, but I don't really understand a few things. So first of all, I'm fairly sure that FISM's, that Italy's pitch, because how it works, right, is you have to pitch to get to host Italy. So Canada hosted it 3 years ago. At Canada, Italy pitched to have this FISM, to be the people that put it on in 2025, just like South Korea pitched to have it at Korea in 3 years' time, in 2028. And I believe they pitched, one of the pitches, or one of the things to do with the pitches, that FISM Italy was going to be in a theatre, in a custom designed theatre, as it should be. We're talking about the World Championships of Magic. We're talking about what people describe as the Olympics of Magic here. We're talking about the best acts in the world coming and performing on a stage where magicians from all over the world come together to see who really is the best of the best. It deserves a theatre. Now, the close-up, they had a theatre because the whole thing took place in a convention centre, right? It took place in a convention centre that's next to a shopping mall. So you've got a shopping mall, you've got a hotel, you've got a convention, lots of different rooms in the convention, lots of different rooms for lectures. That was all fine. Lots of different rooms for, there's a nice little theatre in there for the close-up theatre. Absolutely fine, not a problem. The stage competition, however, and this is the first major problem I have with this, took place in a fucking tent. It took place in a tent built in the car park of a shopping mall. Let's just say that again, just so you follow this. The World Championships of Magic, taking place every 3 years, took place in a car park, in a tent, built in a car park of a shopping mall. Now, it's a nice tent, don't get me wrong. It was a lovely tent. Tent was wonderful. Tent was fantastic. It's still a tent. It's still a tent. And the problem with said tent that's erected in a car park is that it's the biggest tent you've ever seen. Like, you'd want to go camping in this thing, right? It's a huge tent. But the tent is massive. It's massive. And it's also flat, which means there's no tiered seating at all. It also means there's a temporary lighting rig in there, which really isn't brilliant. It's okay, but it's not brilliant. But it's a massive tent. Everything's flat, no tiered seating, which means that once you get 5 or 6, maybe 7 rows back, you can't see anything. It just looks like dots on a stage. You may as well not even be in the theatre, the death tent. From now on, we're calling it the death tent. So you go 5 or 6 rows back, and there's about 16 million rows. You go 5 or 6 rows back, and you're done. You can't see a thing. It's very, very difficult to see because everything's flat. That is not how the World Championships of Magic should be presented, ever. Then you've got the fact that the seating inside the tent are plastic chairs, white plastic chairs. That's right, white plastic chairs. And here's the thing, the stage competition can go on for hours and hours and hours because there's 10 minutes for an act. Then you've got a 10-minute tech time. Then you've got a 10-minute act. Then you've got a tech time. Then you've got a 10-minute act. There's people that are watching magic all day at FISM. They're literally going to the close-up competition in the morning at 9 o'clock. They're watching the close-up acts till like 12 or 1 or something. They're then running off to the death tent. They're going into the death tent. They're watching all of the stage magic till about 6, 7 because it always overruns. And then you've got gala shows in the evening or whatever the hell may be. You end up being sitting down for a long time in these plastic chairs. So you've got a flat tent. The stage is okay, considering it's not a custom-built stage. The lighting is okay. But when should the World Championships of Magic be okay? When is it okay for the World Championships of Magic to go, you know what, let's shove them in a tent? That's what we'll do. We'll put them in a tent and we'll stick up a makeshift stage. We'll throw in some lights. But that's okay because they had 4 big TV screens. TV screens aren't really doing it. It's just this. They're not TV screens. They're massive. They're huge. They're big. They're brilliant. However, the white balance was wrong on it. Every time I went into the death tent, every single time I went in there, you couldn't see a thing. I couldn't see anything on any of the screens. I remember the show on the first night. I was watching it and I was like 3/4 of the way back. And I'm like, I just can't see anything here. I can't see what's going on. The white balance is all wrong on the screen. It basically looks completely black with little purple images running around all over the place. And people are spending a fortune to come here and sit in the death tent and watch this. It's a real skill to piss off both the organiser, it's a real skill to piss off both the attendees and the competitors, but well done, FISM Italy, you managed to pull it off. And you pulled it off by half-arsing it. If you're going to pitch to say that we're bringing FISM back to a real theatre, actually bring FISM back to a real theatre and not a tent in a fucking car park. That is absolutely, completely and totally ridiculous on every single level. So we got this tent, right? So we got the tent. Then there's other little things that are, I say other little things, they're huge, massive, huge, gaping, massive things, to be perfectly honest. While we're talking about the tent, actually, let's talk about the weird decision that they made to have the audience vote. Oh, actually, before we talk about that, on the first day, the AC didn't work. So you're going in Turin, where it's hot as hell. I have so many mosquito bites, it's ridiculous. I mean, that's not really FISM's fault, that's just the way it is. But I've got mosquito bites everywhere, it's ridiculously hot. The AC wasn't working on day one. I took exception to the Magic Circle convention a few months ago when I reviewed the Magic Circle convention, and I said, you know what, you absolutely should have fixed the AC. If you're doing a show on a hot day and you're expecting people to be in there all day, or even for a show, you know, that's not acceptable. I'll say the same thing to FISM Italy. It's the World Championships of Magic. It's the World Championships of Magic. You shouldn't be in a situation where your AC doesn't work on day one. Now, you fixed it, absolutely. But the bottom line is, it shouldn't need fixing. It's not like it was in an old theatre like the Magic Circle where the AC is about 16,000 years old. It's a custom-built tent in a car park. You built it, you could have fixed the AC. It's just ridiculous. There were people walking out of the stage competitions. There were people just leaving because they were too hot. They were going to like fall over and die if they stayed in there any longer. Joshua Riley posted on his Facebook page about how he had to leave the convention, leave the competition on day one because he just couldn't stand the heat anymore. Really? Then there's, like I said, I was going to talk about this, the voting system. Now, obviously, the judges vote for the winners. It's a judging thing. But for some reason, FISM decided to allow the audience to have a go. So after the end of every single act, you've got this like little system where it tells you how the audience felt that the actor's done. Which is just harsh. Why do that? It's not like the audience has any bearing on the competition at all. It's not like the judges are sitting there and going, oh, well, you know what? I didn't like him, but the audience thinks he's brilliant. So you know what? Let's up him a few marks. That's not happening at all in any way, shape or form. So why show that on the screen? Because decisions are going to be biased. Like magic is subjective. Some people will like something and some people won't like something else. There's somebody that could go out and do a great job and it might get less marks because it's maybe something that a certain percentage of people don't like, or maybe it's something to do with nationality or country or something. I don't know. But, you know, as the act standing there, having to watch that stupid little graphic, like you've pulled it out of an average freaking kids show and decided to plonk it on the TV screens at the death tent at the World Championships of Magic, I think that's harsh. It doesn't do anything but demoralise the competitors. And let's be honest, FISM is an emotional whirlwind for the majority of competitors. They're going to be at the highest highs, then they're going to be at the lowest lows. If they've gone on stage and made a mistake, they're going to be upset with themselves. If they've gone on stage and they perceive that they haven't done the act as well as they wanted it to be, even if they've had a great reaction for the audience, they might not be happy. Anybody who's competed at any level will tell you that, let alone the World Championships of Magic. And what these people don't need, once they've given their heart and soul, once they've spent 3 years minimum rehearsing, practicing, putting an act together, making it the best it can be, having to put up with the challenges of performing it in the death tent, what they don't need is to stand there at the end of the act and have this stupid little shitty graphic tell them whether the audience liked them or not. It's absolutely insane, it's ridiculous, and nobody liked it, and it was an insult to every single competitor at that convention, bar none. Absolutely ridiculous. Just completely and utterly stupid. As we're talking about the competitors and having to face difficult conditions, I've heard stories, and I wasn't there firsthand, so this is stories that I've heard from various different acts, saying that it was an absolute nightmare trying to organise the act, you know, because what's meant to happen, right, is they get a 10-minute tech time. So they've got 10 minutes to tech their show. Now, that's not really too much of a problem normally because you send the sheets in ahead of time. So you send in your tech sheets, and then literally the 10 minutes beforehand, are you and your team going, yep, that's right, that's right, that's right. No, I want the light a little bit more over there. Can we have the music up a little bit? That's perfect. Yeah, that's great. Let's do it. This there, this there, this there, this there, this there. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Job done. That's how it should be, but the tech sheets were sent in late, and it seemed like, according to the people I've spoken to, the tech team didn't really know what the acts needed or wanted, and so everything was very, very disorganized from that point of view. I spoke to some acts that had a call time of like 8:30 in the morning, and They were there for an hour and nobody turned up, and they were there in darkness in the death tent with nobody to speak to and nobody perform to, and nobody to help tech them, and just the whole thing was completely disorganized. And I felt really sorry for some acts because the lighting, a combination of not having enough time or the organisers not being organised enough to get the tech requirements correct, combined with the fact that you're in a tent and therefore the performing conditions are difficult, the lighting is not as good as it should be, means that some acts that are using thread, for example, or some acts that are performing in a particular way, that it's not going to work. It's not going to show up. It's that, you had some acts that use thread and everyone could see it. That's not necessarily their fault. I'm sure they've done that act a million times and it's been great, but they didn't have an incompetent bunch of morons organising the competition and therefore exposing effectively how their act works. I talked about Harry Merlin Piper. One of the problems with Harry's act is you couldn't see what was going on. That's because the lighting state of that stage is either really bright or really dark, and no point in between. And you saw that again with act after act after act after act. And realistically, if you're making a pitch to hold the World Championships of Magic, you really should actually be able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Get your shit together. That's what you should do. Let's take a break from the death tent for a minute, shall we? And let's talk about the actual dealer hall. Now, normally, the dealers are a big part of any convention, less so with FISM, because a lot of people come to FISM to watch the competitions. They don't really have time to go around the dealers. But FISM, to their credit, arranged an eclectic, really, really massive range of dealers. Not to the level of somewhere like Blackpool, but still had a nice range of dealers there showcasing some wonderful tricks. There was no dealer hall. There was no room for the dealers. I say we because I was on the Penguin Magic stand, the dealers were put in corridors around the various different corridors that make up this convention centre where the various different lecture theatres were. And it wasn't a dealer hall, it was a dealer maze. Like, I was there for days and I still couldn't tell you who was where and what was where. I just don't know. It was insane. It was ridiculous. There was a dealer there and then a dealer there and a dealer there. They were just all around the corridors, absolutely everywhere. Just here, there and everywhere were the dealers. Now, the problem with that is that doesn't treat the dealers with very much respect. Now, it costs a lot of money to get a dealer to a convention. I don't know how much, I didn't pay it, but I know it costs a lot of money just purely in flights, shipping the stuff over there, shipping it back at the end of the convention. It costs a lot of money, right? It's not a cheap thing to do. I know that Penguin had to hire, they had 4 people there. They had me, they had Eric, they had Sean, they had Mandy. A lot of other people had that many people as well. And it's not a cheap thing to do. And you expect to be treated with a little bit more reverence than just thrown in a corridor. And the other problem was people couldn't find, there's 2 main sort of corridors that the dealers were in. And then there were like little subsections. So a lot of the dealers were in this little corridor at the beginning that was completely away from everyone else. No one could even see the corridor. Nobody even knew there were dealers down there. So halfway through the convention, they had to move the dealers to other areas and shove them in different areas instead of actually having them there. It was just insane, really. You had like open spaces where dealers were. On the last day, I found an entire other area where dealers hung out. And I'm just like, this is just ridiculous. The other thing was, right, the dealer hall, and this is almost like torture, the dealer hall was open from 9 o'clock until 8 p.m. 11 hours. 11 hours every single day. Every single day, 11 hours. Think about that for a minute. 11 hours. Let me say that again. 11 hours. 11 hours. Why does a dealer hall need to be open for 11 hours? It doesn't. Whose bright idea? A lot of dealers were shutting up shop. They were like, no, I can't do this. I'm going to go for a few hours. Because it was quiet a lot of the time, because people were watching competitions and so on and so forth. But as a dealer, you got to stand there for pretty much 11 hours a day, every single day. Like, I've never seen, I've been on stands at a lot of different conventions. I've never seen a dealer stand run that length of time, and it was just horrific. I'll be honest with you, it was just absolutely horrific. I love dealing. I love being on a dealer stand. I really do. I love meeting people, having people come up and say hello. It's my favorite thing about being a convention. I'm really excited about Magic Live, but damn, like seriously, it's just, what's going on? 11 hours. Anyway, yeah, sorry. So, and the other thing was, right, because the dealers are laid out in corridors, people can walk around these corridors whenever. Like, people were walking around the corridors way after the dealer room closed, but there was nobody else there. I remember coming back from dinner one night, and I was walking through the dealer hall. Nobody was there, and I was just walking through the dealer hall. Everyone left their stuff out, covered up with a tablecloth, because that's going to protect it. And I know of dealers that have had stuff stolen. Like, surely there should be some sort of thing in place to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I know there was apparently a security guard, but I never saw the security guard after hours once. It's just another example of bad organisation. It's another example. Another example is just, you need to build breaks into this thing. Like, there was almost like a little bit too much on. It's like, there were shows that were going on until 2 o'clock in the morning. There was one night, right? Again, this is conjecture. This is something I've heard from a few different people, but I didn't see it myself. But there was a show that started one evening. I think it was one of the later days, that started at 12 o'clock until 2:30 in the morning. 12 o'clock until 2:30 in the morning. Bearing in mind that everyone's there at 9 o'clock in the morning, because from 9 until around about 1 is the close-up competitions. Then from sort of 2 till about 6 or 7 or whenever, you've got the stage competitions. And then you've normally got something on after that. And I was like, I said to somebody, why was it on so late? Why was it on until 2? Why did it not start till half midnight or midnight or whatever it was? Oh, they had a show on beforehand for the general public. The general public were watching the show that we got to see a little bit later on. Hang on a minute. What's all that about? Like, people have bought a ticket to FISM, but they're treated as a second-class citizen. They're treated as a second-class citizen because they want to sell tickets to the general public. Now, I don't know. I know about a year ago, Italy were worried about losing money on FISM or something like that. So maybe that's why they've done these public shows. You know, we've got all these magicians in the same room. We may as well use them. I get that. I totally get that. But the people that are there, that have paid money to be there, they should be treated, they should be the priority. They shouldn't be shunted back till midnight after they've been sitting there till from 9 o'clock in the morning just because you want to put a public show on for somebody else. That should never be the case. You know, I heard that the White Party was very nice. On one of the nights, they took everyone to this wonderful venue and took them to this White Party where everyone got to wear white. I didn't go. I was tired. I don't wear white. But everybody went there. But apparently it was like an hour there and it was an hour back, and there was a problem with all of the buses and people wanted to leave and they couldn't. So they ended up buying Ubers, and the food there was apparently terrible. It's kind of like everything has been half-arsed by the organisers, is what it seems like. It seems like money is the priority here, as opposed to, you know, having an incredible experience for the people that have decided to buy a ticket to attend FISM. That's what it feels like to me. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and that's only my opinion, but that's how it feels. It feels like decisions were made that were designed not to give the people that have bought tickets to go to FISM the best possible experience that they could have, but decisions have been made that have been designed to cut corners, cut costs, increase revenue in various different ways. And it's like, oh, well, they're magicians, they've already bought the ticket. It's absolutely fine. There's other things that I've heard as well about contracts. I don't really know much about this. I'm not going to say much about this, but I've heard a lot of different people come to me and say at the last minute when acts were arriving at FISM, they were told to sign contracts, performer agreements, that meant that the footage of their act could be streamed or could be put on television at a later date, and acts were unhappy to actually have that contract signed, which I totally understand. If you spend 3 years working on acts, you know, a lot of these people that compete at FISM, you'll never see their acts online. You'll never see it on YouTube or anything like that, because they want their act to be secret. They want it to be private. They've created it for themselves. It's not like it's going to become a physical product. It's nothing like that. You know, we've all seen acts in the past that have been blatantly copied. You know, we've seen Piff the Magic Dragon go out and do, another Piff the Magic Dragon has gone out and done an act, right? So you see this. So a lot of people try to keep their acts separate and secret. And I've heard that they were getting people to sign these contracts to say that they could use these in a television performance of some description. And if acts were saying, well, no, I don't feel comfortable signing that, they were effectively told that they had to. And they couldn't compete without signing this contract. I don't know if that's true. I'm just parroting what I've been told several different times. If that is the case, that's bloody terrible. That's awful. If you want somebody to agree to terms and conditions to appear at FISM, you tell them when they actually apply to perform at FISM, when they actually get qualified or they get sponsored to be at FISM. That is when you tell them. You do not tell them hours later, just before they're about to go on stage. Just another thing. While we're talking about FISM as well, actually, let's talk about FISM need to take some of the money that they make and they need to create a PR team. They need a PR manager because, frankly, FISM is not worth it to compete at. Let me explain. If I go to my average layperson, if I go to a layperson and I say, let's just say I have been at FISM, they'll turn around and go, oh, what's FISM? Well, it's the World Championships of Magic. Oh, really? Nobody knows what FISM is. Now, it's a big deal within the Magic community. It's a big deal. Oh, it's FISM. Although I see on forums, some magicians don't even know what freaking FISM is, right? But most magicians know what FISM is. They know the importance of FISM. Any layperson, or the majority of lay people outside of FISM, they haven't got a clue what FISM is all about. Now, to be clear, winning at FISM is going to set you up. It's going to open up doors for you. You're going to be able to go to competitions. You're going to be, have the scouts in the audience. I'm sure there are. However, if you're wanting to go to FISM to say, I've competed at FISM, to put it on your website, nobody gives a crap. No layperson knows what FISM is. Bloody a Merlin Award probably carries more weight than FISM. If I put down in the UK, I have competed at FISM, which I haven't, but let's just say I have competed at FISM, and I am an associate member of the Inner Magic Circle with a silver star. It's going to become more impressive for people that I'm in the Magic Circle than it is to say I have competed at FISM. That should never be the case. That should never, ever be the case, but it is. So a lot of people that have done really well at FISM, they can go around as much as they want to and go, oh, I'm a world champion. Mind to mind, I'm a world champion of mentalism. Really? Yeah, I won at FISM. What's FISM? Well, it's the World Championships. It takes place every 3 years. Oh, why have I never heard of that? I don't know. Because the people that organise FISM aren't very good at PR and marketing, and they don't have seemingly a way to educate lay people. You need to, FISM, if you're watching this, and God knows why you would be, you need to educate people around the world. You need to come up with some sort of global strategy to let people know how important FISM is. Because expecting competitors to put all of that time and effort and hard work in to be there and spend all the money and take all the sacrifices that they've taken in order to get to that level, you really should be able to shout about it from the rooftops and have people understand how important FISM is. It's not hard. Get a digital marketing person, get a PR person, and start really pushing it out there, because at the moment it's not. Go see Marvin Burglass. He knows how to do this with Marvin's Magic and with the Magic Circle. Apparently, FISM haven't got a freaking clue, which I'm not surprised at, having just been to FISM Italy. And then there's one more thing that I'm going to say. This year, FISM announced various different awards that weren't part of the normal FISM lineup. And apparently they're satellite things. So they're not actually officially part of FISM, but they were organised by the Masters of Magic. The Masters of Magic ran FISM. They were putting FISM on. They were hosting it in Italy. They're the organisation team, the Masters of Magic, right? So they decided to put on these satellite things like street performing and online awards and so on and so forth. And one of the online awards was one that I was up for, which is a joke because I shouldn't have been, but it was Podcast of the Year. And it just shows that FISM don't really have a clue what's going on, because the Magic Podcast with me and Lloyd Barnes was nominated for a Podcast of the Year, part of FISM, Podcast of the Year, which is ridiculous. It's stupid. It's insane. We should never have been nominated. The Magic Podcast is 2 hours of me making sheep jokes to Lloyd, and it only comes up every 3 months, and that's probably when me and Lloyd have got something to sell. That podcast should never have been in the running. You know which podcast should have been in the running? Eric Tate, Penguin Podcast. Absolutely. One of my favourite podcasts of all time. Everyone's favourite podcast. Eric is actually a really good host. He should have been nominated. But, whatever. It doesn't really matter. That's not the point. The point is, and this shows the complete and total disorganisation on behalf of FISM Italy. So FISM Italy, the Masters of Magic, they have organised this various different online awards. One of the online awards is Podcast of the Year. And it's announced that the Magic guys have won. I thought it was going to be Scott Wells, could have been the Wizard Product Review, Wizard Magic Review, sorry. Lots of different things that it could have been, but it was the Magic guys. Great. This is not about who won and who lost. Magic guys, well done. Great. Doesn't really matter. As long as it's not me, I'm happy. Here's the thing, right? Okay, so if you go onto the website for FISM and you go and look about the online awards and the podcast and who's got the best podcast, and we're going to nominate the best podcast and FISM Italy, right? And you look at the nominees, it then underneath says the judging, how it's judged, and it says you can vote for your favourite podcast, and there's a place where you can actually vote, and a lot of the podcasts were campaigning to have people vote for them, so you can actually do that. And then it says your votes will be taken into consideration, but the judges will be voting and the judge's decision is final, something along those lines. But it's effectively stating that you can vote for who you think is your favourite, and that might influence the judges, but it's the judging panel that are going to ultimately make the decision, as you would expect, because that's basically the case. That's how FISM works, right? And they had a judging committee, and Joshua J. From Vanishing Inc., incredible magician, he was head of the judging committee for a few different online awards, one of which is the Podcast of the Year. And he posted, or there was a post that was put up on that, David Penn posted, I believe, about something or other. Or was it David Penn? It doesn't really matter. Somebody posted. And Josh, and I've got a screenshot, so I'll put the screenshots on. But Josh goes on there and he goes, just so you know, that award was done entirely through public voting and the judging committee had nothing to do with it. What? And that's the head judge that said that. The head judge said that the judging jury, the people that were advertised as being the judges for FISM Italy, had nothing to do with the Podcast of the Year. But the website actually says exactly the opposite. So what is going on here? What is going on here? Because either, I just don't even understand it, because if that's the case, if the head judge, if Joshua J. is saying that the judges didn't have anything to do with it and it went purely on public votes, that wasn't made apparent in the actual website. In fact, it's completely against what is on the website. It's the exact opposite of what the website says. In which case, as an act, not me, because there's no way I should have even been nominated, but any of those podcasts, look at Dave Penn, for example. He's been doing the Wizard Product Review for decades. Magic Review, sorry. He's been doing the Wizard Magic Review for decades. What effectively Josh is saying there is none of the judges could even be asked to have a look at the podcast and just have a little sit down for 10 minutes and go, well, I think this one, I think this one, I think this one, which one should we vote for? They haven't even been asked to do that because they didn't get involved. That's directly from Joshua J. But that's not what the judging criteria was. So either this is another example of FISM Italy being a completely and totally disorganised shit show, and you couldn't really, the organisational team, outside of getting the timings right, couldn't organise a piss up in a freaking brewery, and therefore they couldn't even put something on the website that was then communicated to the judging committee for the online awards, and therefore the judging committee don't know what they're doing, and because the acts that are actually being nominated are basing it based on the information that they've been given, that either they're completely disorganized or the whole thing is corrupt. I don't know. I have no idea. But it is just another example of how this whole thing was completely disorganized. They made a pitch to have FISM in Italy. And look, Italy is a lovely place. The competitors were amazing. There were parts of the convention that were great. The food in Italy is wonderful. The people that attended are amazing. Like I said, the competitors were awesome. The lectures were awesome. The dealers did an amazing job. Some of the rooms inside that the lectures were holding were great. You know, some of the theatres that the close-up competition in was great. The fact that there were TV screens all over the place so the dealers could see some of the acts was great. There's lots of things to love about FISM Italy 2025, but there's so many things that you just go and you just think, you've got one job. You've got 3 years. You found out 3 years ago that you were holding the World Championships. Your job is to make it the best it can be, and you can't even organise a theatre. You put a tent up in the middle of a car park. A perfect example is they had a beer night on the last night, right? At midnight or something like that, they had a beer night. 2,000 people in attendance, and their beer night involved 1 or 2 bar staff and 3 pumps. Think about that for a minute. They're organising a beer night in the convention. It's going to be a beer night. It's going to be absolutely amazing. You guys are going to love it. This is another event. There were 2 people serving beer to 2,000 people. They literally couldn't organise a piss-up in a car park. They literally could not organise a piss-up in a car park. It's like they half-assed absolutely everything. It's like they just went part of the way. Oh, okay, we said we were going to do a theatre, a tent will be fine. We said we were going to do a beer night, but let's throw a couple of bar staff out and just hope for the best. We said we were going to do a spaghetti night, let's not bother and do it in any style. Let's just go and half-ass it. You know, we said we were going to do this, but we didn't. We said we were going to do this, we didn't. Oh, it doesn't matter if the tech isn't brilliant and it's in a tent. It's okay. The competitors will get by. They will cope. This was a shambles in many different ways. And it's a shame because it could have been brilliant. It could have been awesome. It could have been wonderful. But Italy, you fucked it up. That's all I've got to say about that. And I really hope, I swear to God, I hope that in 2028, the organising team of FISM do a better job and treat the competition with the reverence that it deserves. I really hope that they do, because that wasn't the case. And I feel sorry for the organising team, because I'm sure they've tried their best. But you know what? If I go out and I'm booked to do a show, and I do a shit show, and I haven't got my tech right, and I haven't got my performance right, and I haven't gone and done the job that I was booked to do, when the client rings up and complains, it's not good enough for me to turn around and say, I did my best, because they paid me money to go out and do an incredible show. And if I didn't do that because I screwed up, that's on me. It's not on anyone else. It's not on anyone. Look, they can make as many excuses as they want to. And I'm sure some of them are valid. But at the end of the day, excuses are like arseholes. Everyone's got one, and they all stink. I spoke to somebody on the last day, and they were like, "Oh, it's going to be so much better in Korea. They're going to have a theatre, and they've got seats." And I'm like, that should be a bare minimum for a competition for the World Championships of Magic. Don't act like having a theatre is a good thing. That should be a freaking given. FISM Italy was a great experience. I would highly suggest anybody watching this go to FISM. Unfortunately, many things that were promised 3 years ago weren't delivered. Many corners were cut. Many issues were created through to incompetency. And despite all the hard work and despite all the good work that the organisational team did, that unfortunately didn't take away from the fact that the entire thing, they couldn't even organise a piss-up in a car park. I got nothing else to say. To everyone that came over and saw me at FISM, thank you very much. To anyone who came over and hung out with me, thank you very much. Big thank you for Gwilliam Bajaya, who kept bringing me coffee on my stand during my 11-hour stints. Thank you very much. I'm going to be at Magic Live. I'm sure Standout is not going to mess it up as much as FISM Italy did. But for everyone that went there and had a great time, that's awesome. I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching. My name's Craig, and this is Magic TV.